And on today's show, how to work with women in an engaging setting, part 2 of this week's series on what women want from financial advisors. With nationally recognized woman strategist, adult educator, and adjunct professor at Roosevelt University, Dr. Barb Provo. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Innsmark, Life Specs, and Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Welcome to the show, Barb.
Thanks, Steve.
Dr. Barb to you.
That's right.
Well, if you missed yesterday's show, I want you to hop out to our site. I think you need to watch these shows in their succession, in chronology. I think your learning experience and tutorial experience will be way better. Dr. Barb, okay, we're talking about what women want from their financial advisors, and we're going to have to hit some holy grails here today, and we're going to have to tear down some mythology.
Right.
One of them is, I have a sales process. I've been taught this way for 30 years. I was taught the sales process. I've been executing my sales process, and I'm rather good at it. But now we're saying, no, this is not how women operate. And I need you to walk us through why that isn't what we're going to be doing. We're not talking about the sales process. We're talking about engagement settings. What are we talking about?
Okay, great. So I've had many, many years of developing education for organizations where they taught a sales process. It's very transactional. It's where you come in and you go through your process and methodology so that you, at the end of the sales call, you've sold a product. And remember one time I said to you I would never purchase a product that way. And it's because there's no engagement. There's not enough engagement for a woman in that type of sales process.
How do I revamp my entire way I've been doing things then? If that's true, I have to change.
You do have to change. And a lot of that is the initial meeting is very, very, very important. You know, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And so what you need to do at that first meeting is really learn about who is your client that's sitting in front of you. You cannot paint everybody with the same broad brush. You really have to sit back and ask some good questions to learn about your client, what they need, what their story is, where they've come from, where they want to go to, and what it is that they need from you.
Okay, so I'm quarantining, if I hear me correct, I'm quarantining my first contact in just discovery process here.
Yes.
I'm not doing anything in the process of sales. I'm not even, maybe even talking products or anything like that.
True.
So how hard is that for us to make the jump? Because our whole industry, both financial services as well as insurance services, we've all been predicated on the sales process.
Yes. Well, what you'll find is if you can learn this type of strategy where you're really setting up some foundational relationship building and really caring and learning about who your client is and sharing a little bit about what brings you to selling financial services, what's your story, why are you in this business, and how can the two of you come together to help her in her financial need. So it's a different process, and it's a longer process, and sometimes there might be a lot of patience required. The other thing is that once you do build that foundational trust with a woman and understand who she is and what her story is, you will have a client for life. And women, as you well know, build networks, build webs, they sell products and services just by talking and having conversation with one another. They don't do a lot of research on the web in terms of financial products, but they ask for recommendations and referrals, and that's how you will propagate your business.
So really, their social engagement is your referral system, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've noticed you said this before, and I just wanted to pick up on this. You think that we need to become educators in the way we talk about these things, not so much in the product sale, not so much in the sales process, but we're educating. Here's what's really going on. This is why I'm trying to match a concern that you brought up and actually educate you, not so much sell me.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up because that is so important. When you come to the table, you have all these great letters and after your name, all these certifications. But when you come to the table, the most critical piece is being able to convey very critical and personal information about this woman's financial future and explain to her where is she at, what does she want for her future, what are the products, the services, the strategies that you can help her implement to reach that end goal. But in order to do that, you are really in an educator type role because you are explaining a lot of different complicated pieces of information to her.
I've noticed that not many salespersons are that good at educating. You know, they're not really naturally teachers. So I have to figure out a kind of a middle ground here where I got to have a segue or kind of a transition from my normal sales process to an engagement and an educator, becoming an educator. And a facilitator actually is one of the, we're going to talk about that tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah, so how do I make that how can I, I want to learn how adults learn. I want to learn how women think. I want to know how they engage. How do I change? It's difficult to make this, especially for us who have been veterans in this business for a long time.
It is difficult, and a lot of it takes training yourself. I mean, really understanding what does the process look like today, and then what should the process look like now when I'm dealing with my female client. And you'll see if you would put them side by side, they're totally different. And what you also need to do is you need to be able to learn how to facilitate a conversation where you're explaining to your customer, teaching them, if you will, what the different products are and why they're important and how they work so that they could make a good financial decision. You don't always have to get down to the nits and lights, but you have to at least give them enough information that they feel, I say, both confident and competent to make a really good financial decision.
We come back from the break. We're going to let Dr. Barb talk to us about how we can actually create an engagement setting on our first and second interviews. We'll be right back after the break. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back to our second segment. Of course, we're with Dr. Barb Provo, her PhDs in how adults learn. This is what we're talking about all this week on how to engage adults, but more specifically, how we engage women. And I believe women will own the purse strings in America all over the next decade. We're going to have a huge transfer of wealth, and they're going to be running the show. I want to talk about how to create an engagement setting. Mm-hmm. Now, I punt sometimes because I want to just think about dating, but I haven't dated in such a long time. So I talk about engagement setting. How do I can create that as an advisor?
Well, I like the dating analogy because oftentimes you are setting up an atmosphere of where you're going to build trust, and you're going to build safety, and you're going to build an open dialogue, because they are going to reveal some information to you that's personal, their finances, their income, what their dreams are, things like that. So first and foremost, I would say you need to really invite the woman into the conversation. Now, how you do that?
Yes, how do you do that?
Is, sometimes it depends on if you're with, a man and a woman in terms of a partnership, mm-hmm. or just a woman herself or whomever. But you really need to ask good open-ended questions. You need to look her in the eye, and you need to stop talking and listen. Acknowledge. And when she says something that is important, that you think is important to her financial future, you need to write it down and acknowledge that.
How important are these steps that you just brought up?
They are critical.
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 Not optional.
No.
So you're really giving us a formula that you don't want us to break.
True. Remember, this is an engagement process. Mm-hmm. This is not a sales process. This is a way of starting to build some foundation of trust.
Now, I noticed when you're talking about what she wants, and are most women communicative? Are they going to be able to voice and articulate what they really desire? Is that too early on maybe in the process?
I don't think so. I think that you should always ask the question and give her time to think it through. Maybe no one has ever asked her that question before, mm-hmm. so maybe mm-hmm. she does need to have some time to think it through. What is it that you want for your financial future? What does that look like for you? What do you mm-hmm. want to be able to do? Tell me a little bit about where you've come from. Mm-hmm. What are your struggles? Because that will tell you a lot about, where she may want to go in the future.
If we're going to use our time well, and we want to stay away from the sales process, which is the temptation and the default position that most male advisors will at least go to. How can I use my time well? And is it better to have a quarantine amount of time? I'm just going to do it 20 or 30 minutes and then say, I didn't want to take up any more time. This is our first meeting. Or no, I want a longer engagement. What do you think is the most propensity among women? Time
is really important to discuss. In fact, up front in the conversation, because women are very, very busy and they want to know what's this meeting about, mm-hmm. what can I expect. So what I would always do if I were a financial planner is go to the meeting with kind of an agenda that kind of says, in this meeting today, I'm hoping it will take about 40 minutes give or take a few, depending on where we go with the conversation. And this is what I'm hoping to do, and tell them what you're going to do, and what by the end of the meeting, what will happen, so on and so forth. And then just say, no, this is an agenda I put together for us to discuss. Is there anything on here that you would like to discuss, or should we just set this aside? What's your agenda? So at least she knows you're going in with a game plan, so she doesn't have to make it up if she's caught off guard. But you're also allowing her the time to voice how she wants to spend the time, or what's burning in her mind that she wants to get answered during that time frame.
I've noticed that if I can remember my normal engagement during my courtship days, I noticed that being on time is a huge issue.
Time is everything.
Because you just said time is really important. So I can't just come in and 10 minutes, 15 minutes late. I should be a little bit early and ready to go.
Right.
It shows respect.
Well, it does show respect. What we say in our family is if you're on time, you're late. So you should always be ready, prepared for the meeting, have everything you need to meet with your client, have some agenda in mind of how you're going to spend that time. And during the meeting, you need to check in with her and say, am I meeting your needs? Are we going down the road that you think we need to go down? Because you may be going down a road you think is important, and she may be thinking something different, but you need to open that dialogue and say, is there anything concerning you at this point? Do you want to shift? What is it that you need?
Dr. Barb, I want to talk to you about something so specific to what you said. I think my observation is that women sometimes are stuffers, that they don't really articulate because they don't feel the comfort, that they're not in a safe environment. Creating a safe environment for them to discuss what they really want to talk about is so important. I'm trying to think about how to shift my thinking as an advisor who's been so dedicated to the sales process and first contact and where to go with it immediately, which I am built that way. I'm trying to now build my agenda with my questions that will actually help the discovery process and help her relax enough to feel confident that I actually have her interest in mind. I don't want to create false sincerity. I actually want to believe what I'm talking about.
True.
So I have to make that graduation. I have to go that way. How do I do that?
When you open the conversation, what would be really powerful is if you told her a little bit about your background and what brings you to selling financial services. And that could be very powerful, because you're sharing a little bit about who you are, where you came from, what your purpose is for doing what you do on a daily basis, and it tells her a little bit about you, your credibility, and who you are as a person, and exposes you a little bit to her in terms of what it is that you do on a daily basis. And then she might feel... So
vulnerability is big.
It is big, very big, yeah. And so she, then she might feel like, a little bit like, whew, he's shared with me a little bit about who he is. Now I feel like I can share a little bit back. It's a little bit of a banter or a dance to see, are we comfortable in this situation? It's kind of like your first coffee.
I don't want to get too much, because most guys make a mistake on a date. They talk about themselves all the time.
That's
true. I want to be able to be careful on that and pull back. That's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Missed an episode? Just hop out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you.